looking at Susanna's phone in case anyone has anything.
If you have any questions, I'm looking at them, so just let me know.
Yeah, and also introduce yourselves and stuff so other people can see who you are, because here we like to be a whole community, so you can introduce yourselves.
As you.
So, yeah.
We want to just introduce yourself first?
I guess. Thanks.
Okay.
So, I'm Diana, as you know, since this is my page. But I am a graduate student and an epidemiologist, and then this is Susanna.
Hi.
So,
Sorry. I am Susanna.
who cannot multitask apparently.
I am a second year PhD student at Oregon State University. I am studying public health, and my specific field is in global health.
Yeah. So we know each other because we're doing the Global Caveat podcast, which will be coming back finally. Sorry for my finger guns, but whatever. But I know that we put out a teaser episode at the end of December, but then the holidays came up, so we took a little bit of a break. We will be putting them back out starting next week, every other week.
Yeah, so we have episode 2 finally coming out on Monday.
Yeah.
And it'll be really interesting. It talks about some New Year's resolution goals, and I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah.
But at this point, we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket, Castbox.
Yeah.
And
then whatever else anyone listens to, please let us know so we can put it out there. It's not just us talking, so it's a lot more productive than what's happening right now. We have some other people talking with us on those. And yeah.
So this live is just to say hello. If you have any questions and anything you want to know about us, please let us know. But we're really excited because this is mine and Diana's first time meeting in person.
Yeah.
Even though we've been communicating a lot over the past few months.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you're just joining us, welcome. Please introduce yourselves just so that people can know who you are.
Yeah.
You can just type into the thing.
And then just, I guess, a little background on how we got started. Both Susanna and I are a part of all the different various science communities and just other communities on Instagram, and we found each other and realized that we have overlapping interests and topics. So then we started talking about the different ways that you can do communication, and podcasting came up. So that is how we got started, because we just kind of were like, hey, this would be an interesting thing. And there isn't really a podcast out there that explains all of what global health is, because it's such an enormous topic, honestly. There's just involves so many different types of scientists, professionals, researchers, people in general.
Hi, Kyoko.
Yeah. Hi, Connie.
Hi, Connie.
Yeah. So, yeah. And
oh, wow.
I don't know.
People are just coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone has oh, hi, Becky.
Hi, Becky.
Do people have questions about us? What you would like to know about us? We just want to put a face to the podcast voices, and I know that we have a certain personality on Instagram that you may see, but maybe there are other things that you would like to know. So this is just kind of a hello chat type of thing. I see other people are joining. Hi, Becky.
Yay!
We are excited to see you on here. Thanks for being on here.
Yeah.
Oh, is the live video paused?
No.
It's not paused, right?
I don't think it's paused. Oh, is it paused?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Is it because of the internet?
Is it because of the internet? Is it paused? I don't know how to fix that. Origin stories. Is this working? Is it live? Is it paused?
Mine says pause, but I think...
Can someone confirm if this is paused or not? Although I get questions they're having, so I guess what exactly is global health from an outsider point of view? So origin stories. How did you both get interested in global health? Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay, so origin stories for me. So I actually got my bachelor's in international studies, and I was on the pre-med track. Junior year, I was like, oh, I don't want to go to med school, so I actually was almost done with my prerequisites, and I was preparing to take the MCATs, and I just folded all of that, and I decided to go an international studies route, and then that got me into international development with a focus on global health for my master's. And then during my master's, I decided that I want to increase my skills and research skill sets in global health, so then I applied for a PhD in global health. That's pretty much how I went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Similarly, I guess, I did my bachelor's in originally actually digital media, and then I switched into doing biomed engineering and had the idea of going to med school, and then I actually did go to school for physical therapy. While I was there, I realized that working on patients directly was not my jam, and I was a little bit more interested in advocacy. Pause. Okay, back. Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, technical issues. Anyway, so I went to PT school and then realized I'd rather be doing things with policy and advocacy. So then I went to school for public health, and then I started getting really interested in doing global health and global networks and working more than just in the US and expanding beyond. So that's kind of how I got into it. And
Becky added a question onto that. So what specific topic in global health were you each most interested in? And did you get sick, or were you in another field and transferred in? So
I guess I did get sick of my field, or I transferred into my field. I didn't get sick. Wait, what?
Like sick of the field, I think. Or sick of what you were interested in.
I was tired of, or ended up not being interested or lost interest in physical therapy, which is how I ended up switching into global health. And it all really stemmed from just access to healthcare, because I worked with some legislative things down in Florida, helped get more access to healthcare, and then I realized how important it was to work with policy. So that was my main thing. Yeah.
I think I was always interested in health, but it started with clinical care was my primary interest. And then over the years of doing like shadowing and just learning more about the field, I realized that the way my mind thinks is like more zoomed out. I look at the system of how things operate, how various factors come into affecting a population more than the individual. So that was literally like, oh, it's an easy transition for me from clinical care to the public health setting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So next question was, so what exactly is global health from an outsider's point of view? That's a great question.
What is global health?
So I usually tell people, just because I teach like an intro to global health class, I usually tell people, it's not just about going in and providing care or providing some kind of intervention to better the health of a community. While that is just one aspect of it, when I think about global health, I think it's really taking into account the history, the social aspects, the actual health, like the biological stuff of the person, their gender, like all these factors. And you're looking at the human experience and seeing, okay, are they able, like, do they have the ability to achieve a higher level of health given all these factors? And what of these factors can we target to help empower these people so that they can collectively grow into a better state of health that they want? Mm-hmm. So that would be what I tell other people what global health is.
Yeah.
I
think that's pretty good. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. Next question. How important is statistics software in global health? Do I have to be good at math to do this? That's a really great question.
That's a good question, Kyoko. I do not think you necessarily have to be good at math to be good at statistics. Like, honestly, I'm not that great at math, and somehow that's all my life is statistics. And then statistical software. Really, if you understand how to input the correct syntax in the different types of statistical software, what really matters is interpretation of the data, right? So before you start interpreting anything, this goes for like any science, you decide what level of, like what your confidence interval is and the, like at what point there is importance or statistical significance.
I think there's like a basic level of statistics you have to understand. So things like confidence intervals, in epidemiology you use odds ratios, like risks, you want to measure risk that way. So there's things like that. In health economics, there's different vocabulary and actually different theories that operate. But that's like pretty, like you can get pretty high level in that stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of global health researchers are also qualitative researchers, or they do mixed methods. And not all these researchers go that in depth with the statistics. And it really depends on what research question you're asking and what it is that you're trying to look at. So I would say if you're a strong qualitative researcher, that's just as valuable as being a strong quantitative researcher in global health.
Yeah, and also if you're not very good at math, that shouldn't be something that holds you back, because definitely you can learn while you're doing it, because it's mostly like a method and just like you kind of get into like the rhythm of things and how you correctly interpret data, or how you're putting in all of the, like what kinds of regressions and stuff you're running.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you're one of those people though where you're like, I have to find something that like you want to make causal statements, then you probably need pretty good statistics background, I feel like. But even that is rare. You can't really come up with like causal statements unless you have like really good evidence for it.
There's also not a whole global health nothing's quite an absolute, which is true for like pretty much all sciences. It's mostly like, well, this is there's a good chance that this is the reason, or this is very much maybe why it happens. So,
I was good at math, not good at statistics.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's different. Yeah. I would say the same for myself. I think I'm actually better at math, and then statistics is learning to interpret, I think, and like imagining things.
I'm not good at math.
You're not good at math?
No.
You're good at statistics. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are your research topics?
Oh, okay. My current research topic is essentially the cycle of violence in post-conflict settings. So I'm doing research in Ukraine, and all of my data is directly, or like the year after the conflict when the conflict started in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. So I'm working on how violence impacts different, like other types of violence, so like gender-based violence, domestic violence, and things like that.
So my dissertation topic, I'm starting my proposal now, so I'm looking in general at, again, gender-based violence against Indigenous or Native American women. So that is my topic. Details of that I will be continuing to flesh out for the next few months before I defend my proposal. So if you have resources, which people have been giving me a lot of really great resources on Instagram.
Oh,
yeah.
So
Instagram is actually a really great community to get some really cool resources. So I don't have any more. I don't think people submitted more questions.
No.
So let me see if I missed any. Origin story.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
Oh. What are some regions you are most interested in eventually gathering data research from? What parts of the world do you think could
That's a good question. Think about that.
Some hard-hitting questions over here.
What regions are you most interested in gathering data and research from? I think in general, like for every country, for everywhere, there's like a lack of data for indigenous and aboriginals and everything. So I think that is mainly a huge thing that I think that we could use a lot more data from in general, because it's usually whatever is the most accessible or easiest, or the people that they're willing, or whoever's like going in to collect data is willing to work with. So there's a lot of data missing in that aspect, and like that way.
Yeah, I don't think I have a specific region that I'm really like, oh, I would really love to gather data or research. I mean, right now I'm wanting to look at the Native American population. But even with that, a lot of what I'm doing right now, before I even start thinking about where I can get my data, I'm doing a lot of like looking at their history and understanding the context of where people are at. And that in itself is actually a lot of reading and a lot of work, because historically underrepresented groups have been abused by science, and they don't have a lot of trust with scientists. And in global health, it's really important that you build trust with the people that you're working with, because you want to directly benefit the group or the community. Which unfortunately, even in global health, like there will be researchers that don't do that. So
yeah.
What parts of the world do you think you could most benefit from this research? I mean everywhere.
I think everywhere. Yeah. I mean, I guess also if I had to pick one region, I would like to do more research in just Asia. I don't know.
It's a lot.
I mean, I guess if I had to pick a region, it's Asia.
A lot of surface area.
Which is like, you know, a large amount of land. So.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest challenge in global health? Biggest challenge.
Skepticism.
What do you mean?
I think it's skepticism. Like, a lot of people don't seem to really understand, or they're afraid of the science that goes behind it. Like, I think that's a huge issue, because it's one thing for people that are doing the research to be able to analyze the data and make the statements, but then you can't really do much with that if the places you're getting research from aren't willing to accept it or work with that. So I feel like...
Do you have like more specifically?
Even here, or like in like indigenous populations, if you do the research and then like the way that, I guess it's more like skepticism and like the way that data is collected, like kind of goes hand in hand, right? So like there's a lot of fear that goes around it.
Skepticism from like the scientific community, or
No.
skepticism from the
General public.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, skepticism from the general
Okay.
public. So I like, it's hard to get anything done if the people that you're trying to work with don't believe you. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And I think that's what we were saying.
So I guess trust.
Building trust and rapport is really important, and it's incredibly difficult and time consuming. And it's hard. Another challenge in global health, I think one challenge actually is that a lot of the work that you do in various communities, I think people don't realize how harmful that your intentions can be. And it's really hard to undo the bad consequences. It could ruin communities, it could ruin, a lot of things, and it's really hard to undo it. Part of that is the trust aspect, where if a researcher goes in with the best intentions, but that data and information is just consumed, but nothing is given back, that can break trust, and then for the future, it just kind of ruins any chance of any researcher being able to work honestly with this group. But in general, like that's, even with people who aren't researchers, but are just like people who work in the field, like they're face-to-face, hands-on with these people, and they're bringing these interventions on the field, like there could be a lot that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, they could have the best intentions and you don't know. Like you can plan everything around it and do the best thing you can, but sometimes it's just really hard. But when those negative consequences do come about and they have a really big impact, it's really hard to undo that. Yeah. So I would say that's a pretty big challenge.
Yeah.
And then, what are some ways that we can improve on in enhancing health in indigenous populations?
That's all you.
Okay, so First, I want to preface my answer by saying I like I am not as experienced in working with indigenous populations. So what I know right now is a lot from what I've been reading, and actually from the time and labor of other researchers who are actually Native themselves, who have taught me a lot so far. So one thing is realize, I guess, some ways that we can help improve. So one thing I want to say is that these people, like indigenous groups, are capable, and they need to have power and a space in the decision-making processes that brings services to their communities. So even though I am non-Native and I am doing this research and working with Native peoples, I need to have the very conscious decision to have Native people actually have their voice be very present 100% in my research, so that when I put it back out there, the message that they get, it needs to be something that can benefit the community and something that they can use themselves to be like, okay, we're going to use this. Because it's not just for me to consume and for like other people who read journals to consume. So I guess the best way we can improve the overarching thing I would say is like anything that could bring the resources to them, so for them to build up on their own, because they're capable. Like there are capable people everywhere. And it's not my job to like go in and just like be like, oh, I know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna do it for you. Like that's not my role.
Also, enhancing health is a little bit confusing, I think, as a statement, because like health is subjective to each like group of people and each person individually.
That's a good point.
So it's more like an assessment of quality of life and how, like your personal quality of life, and I guess what you're giving back to your particular community and everything as well. So it's
Yeah.
And I mean, also everything you just said is applicable to really any community.
Any community,
not just indigenous populations.
Yeah.
But I think that indigenous populations, like in particular, because for so long.
Right,
like,
and I mean, indigenous, at least the Native population here in the United States, they have traditional medicine that works and they understand and is culturally applicable to them.
Yeah.
And Western medicine has been like they've been saying like, oh, this isn't valid, like this isn't real medicine, and like through that lens of colonialism, a lot of that was taken away, which you're not just taking away something important, you're stripping like power, which is really harmful. So I think even validating like we should like incorporate what makes sense to you, what you've known for years, into whatever this intervention or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is also an aspect of health. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are the questions.
Heavier questions than I was expecting.
I know. I was expecting like, oh, what's your favorite ice cream? Or like, what's, I don't know, the coolest place you've been to. But do you think research in the past versus today is more descriptive or prescriptive? I feel like global health research in the past was curiosity that stopped at curiosity.
Well, no, I think I think it's prescriptive in the past, because it was like curiosity, but also like a lot of it comes from like the global north, right? So it's like the US, the UK, Australia, things like that, and people being like, oh, this has worked so well for us, let's apply this to everyone else. So we're gonna find out what's wrong in other places and then just like stick a Band-Aid on and be like, yes, good to go. But then that doesn't really work, right? So now it's a little bit more, I think it's more descriptive now, because people are more accepting of qualitative data now, where it's more like actually listening to people instead of being like, here's a survey, please fill it out, or like, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 5 about whatever.
Well, I think global health research has also changed over the years, because I mean, it started with like, we had like anthropologists who had their own thing going on, and then we had like sociologists doing their own thing, medicine doing their own thing. But then now when you read global health papers, it's like a mixture of these things, kind of, right?
Yeah,
like the research question includes those components. So like yeah, so whereas in the past there have been like global health related efforts to like, oh, let's improve people by trying to eliminate poverty and improve their overall health, it was maybe from like an economist lens.
Yeah.
And then that was used to like blanketly create mass policies
Yeah.
to like, let's lift these communities out of poverty.
I mean, it's also before it was primarily infectious disease, and now it's more non-communicable diseases, which are more understood now because it's not just people just dying. It's more like based on quality of life and daily life type of things.
What's your favorite ice cream? No, pizza.
Wait.
From a global health perspective?
What's my favorite pizza from a global health perspective? What?
Okay, people are gonna hate me, but I actually don't really like pizza.
I think our podcast just ended.
Well, I mean, I'll eat it. It's not like I hate it, but I'm not like, oh my god, I crave pizza. Like, I'm not one of those people that can eat pizza all the time.
I'm a little bit in shock right now. From a global... So, I think every place has a different type of pizza. I'm going to answer this properly, unlike you. So, I think every place has a slightly different pizza, and this sounds so weird, but I actually kind of like the way that Korean pizza is. Like, they put sweet potato in the crust, and it's kind of like around it, so then you're eating it, and there's like corn on top of it, and it's like savory, and then you get to the crust, and it's kind of like this sweet bready thing. No? Have you had it? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I also think pizza from Naples is really good because their bread is different. I actually ate like 6 different pizzas in Naples once in the span of 3 hours.
Okay, I do like thin crust pizza though. I don't like deep dish pizza.
Yeah. I mean, I also like thin crust. I'm sorry, Sean, if you're still in here. I saw you came earlier, but definitely not a Chicago pie.
People are like, how do you not like pizza? I'm sorry. I associate it with like diarrhea because I'm lactose intolerant.
You can have it without dairy. I'm also lactose intolerant, but I just take pills.
I'll eat dairy-free pizza. Like, I tried vegan pizza and it was good. But, I mean...
You also carry lactate pills with you.
Yeah, I do.
I don't understand the problem.
Pizza from Naples, I'm jealous. Okay, people are saying, kick me off the stream. Cool. Do you have any sources where I can read about public or global health? I would say if you're someone who has like no background in it or anything, I read actually NPR, like the health section, pretty often.
I can make those resources available.
A great resource that you can listen to is our podcast.
Yeah. But seriously, I can make more resources available on the website. So,
Yeah, but I mean, NPR, I think on their health section has like really great articles just talking about different like health news topics. If you're interested in journals, there's so many like.
Yeah, I subscribe to so many different ones. I subscribe to like every single one that I have found. I subscribe to, so I get like emailed maybe 5 journals a day.
Usually Lancet.
Lancet is good. Yeah, that's like essentially the golden standard.
Yeah, if you're interested more in like health economics, then there's like specific health economics ones. PubMed has good ones for everything.
Yeah, there are some good books that are more like written like novelized. Is that a word? I don't know.
Yeah.
That I can also share afterwards, so that way you can read those, and they're pretty easy to read, so you can go through. So it's a good introduction.
How do you not like pizza? Okay, that's
also sorry for being bougie.
Would you rather only be able to travel in your state for the rest of your life, or only be able to travel to the moon and back? Becky.
What?
Would you rather only be able to travel in your state for the rest of your life, or only be able to travel to the moon and back?
I feel like a lot of people only have the option to travel in their state. So and there's a lot going on in every state. Like at least, like in the United States, every state does have a lot going on. So I think that's not a bad thing. But I also feel a little biased because the 2 states I'd have to choose from if I was picking the one that I'm from is either California or New York. So.
I know. I'm like, if I had to travel around Colorado, I wouldn't mind that. Because that's where I was born and raised, but I feel like it's changing a lot. It's been changing a lot. And oh my gosh, the nature is beautiful there. Like there's always something. But in Oregon, I wouldn't want to. No.
There's nature in Oregon.
Yeah, it's not as beautiful as Colorado.
You could just hang out with Shakespeare stuff all the time. Just every day. Shakespeare. No? Okay.
Okay, so she has a serious question.
Okay.
What's the best terminology to describe global north versus global south, Western emerging economies?
I have recently started saying global north and global south instead of other things.
I mean, in research, you'll see a lot of like high income, low middle income.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine, but it's not like a country isn't all about the income.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about health specifically. So there's a little bit of the thing with that. I say global north and global south too. Usually when you say global north, you're kind of referring to like Western.
Yeah, I think people just get confused because Australia is definitely clumped into global north, kind of.
Yeah.
But it's in the south.
Yeah. I mean, and
we can come up with new terms.
I mean, there's no perfect term.
Accepting new terms.
Yeah.
You can suggest them to us.
There's no perfect term, but there are terms I would say you shouldn't use. Things like first world, third world. Don't use those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear that.
I'm not super into calling like low income countries either, which is how I've started using
like
global
there's
north and south.
with that, I think.
But a lot of research is like low middle income countries. So if you'll see like a lot of like LMICs in research, you'll see that a lot.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question really, Becky. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's kind of a gray area. Like no one's, unless you're clearly like, oh, third world country, like people are probably gonna be like, maybe you shouldn't use that.
Yeah, that one is definitely outdated. Yeah. Don't use that one.
But right now, I think you'll see more of the low, high, middle, low, and then the global north or global south.
Yeah.
I lived in one state for 24 years. I never ever lived there again. That's why I keep hopping out, living in a place each year. That's great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you loved Oregon. I'm not saying I hated it. Remember that. Oh, what about privileged versus underprivileged?
I don't know that refers to parts of the, like, regions of the world. I think that's more based on economics and just resource availability.
Or resource accessibility.
Accessibility, yeah. Because I'd say that saying privileged or underprivileged is more, like, I'd use those more with, like, under-resourced, resourced, marginalized, things like that.
Yeah, so I would say, but if you're, like, going to, let's say, a low-income country in Africa, or even, like, a poor community in the United States, and you're like, wow, I am so privileged. Like, the intention and the context behind that is different. In the larger scale of when we're talking about research, I mean, that's what Diana was said is, like, I would agree with her. But, like, as an individual, if you're, like, going to these places and you're like, wow, I feel so privileged, that's different.
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, and then describing communities as, like, wow, these poor, like, not so privileged folks, even that, and I think it depends on the context of what you're trying to say and why you're saying it.
Overall, if you couldn't get the gist of everything, everything's a gray area. It's our answer to everything. It's a gray area.
So you're saying privileged versus underprivileged would be more localized? I think it depends on the context that you're asking the question. So if you're talking the question of like if we're talking about racism, I mean, that's a pretty obvious one. Like, there's privilege in racism. There's privilege in, like, the discourse of racism, right?
Yeah.
Like, certain yeah.
But even like if you take it, like removing all of that, just in each, I almost want to say in most contexts it could possibly be synonymous with under-resourced. Because like if you think of it in like not trying to think of like race or gender, and you're just like in any community in one area has more opportunity or more resources and able to get like all their food and all of that kind of stuff, or just they have access to more education, they would be like privileged, right?
Yeah.
Like if so, like each localized community would have like maybe like these people have more resources, these people have less resources, which could be synonymous with those as well.
And I've seen underprivileged used in like research about like underprivileged youth. Or like communities where resources are really sparse, or access is really sparse too, and they say like, oh, these underprivileged communities. I think that has more of like a different context to it than like the individualized like oh, like they're so not like that's. I'm sorry if that wasn't a good explanation on my part. So then is marginalized an appropriate way to describe low middle income countries due to and as a consequence of the acts of high income countries? Appropriate way to describe low middle income countries. I wouldn't generalize that far, because I think
I feel like that's also an in context situation.
Yeah, I think in general you could say like historically high income countries, so like the countries that are now included in the global north, are also historically the countries that have been colonizing, and then that's why we see like some disparities now, and like global disparities in terms of health. So you could say like you could see marginalized communities, right?
Yeah.
Like smaller scale, like you can see marginalized communities, marginalized folks, and marginalized countries. I don't think I see that very often. I don't see that very often, and I don't know if there's a reason for that.
I'd say maybe like regions within countries. There's like marginalized regions, but
But I mean, I think the concept of marginalization is interesting, and it's pretty complex. That you can't. I imagine that it might be difficult to like apply it to a whole country.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, you're a marginalized country.
That sounds so bad.
Yeah.
Just like
or maybe it just sounds really terrible. So
it could just be that it sounds really terrible, so we don't say it.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, though. I don't. Yeah. What are your goals for the future? To get paid.
Yes, to get paid. What are my goals for the future? You know, I feel like I ask myself this every single day, and I don't really know. Really, at this point, my particular interest is to work with mental health and destigmatize it just everywhere. And I'd like to do anything that really helps me do that and make that a reality in whatever form that is. But like for my immediate future, I'd like to eat dinner. Does that count? I don't know.
I guess as a person, I just want to be someone that's empathetic.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Does it sound too millennial if I say I just want to be happy?
I want to pay off my student loans. Yeah. I want to. I don't want to be rich. I want to be comfortable enough to be able to make decisions without being so stressed out.
Yeah.
And honestly, in the context of research, I never want to become the researcher that is jaded and comfortable and gets and is like an ego, like, I don't know, someone who just like feeds off other people feeding my ego.
Yeah.
Because you'll see that very often in academia, and it really turns me off as an aspiring good researcher. So I would really hate to become that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to eat dinner. This is getting too real. Okay, well, if you have no other like questions you have to ask in the next, I'm gonna say like 10 seconds because there's kind of a delay actually.
Yeah.
If you don't have any other questions, then Diana and I are gonna go eat dinner.
Yes, we are.
Yes, because we're pretty hungry.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll give you guys like, I don't know, 5 to 10 more seconds to ask a question or not.
You can just look at our pretty faces while we see
Yeah.
voguing.
Yeah. So I'm actually heading back to Oregon tomorrow, and she's heading back to New York. So
Yeah. I'm driving all the way back. If you live along the way, you can shoot me a message.
oh yeah.
Because also driving that long by myself is the worst, as many of you saw with my lovely carpool karaoke, where I sang to everybody. It was amazing. I'm sorry.
I was a tad late to the game. I know, Diana. Who are you? I'm Susanna. I'm a second-year PhD student in public health. I'm studying in Oregon. As you know, I don't crave pizza like most people do. But I love ramen, and I love rice, and fruits, and vegetables, and chicken.
Although I don't believe that she loves vegetables because I've spent the past few days with her.
We
and
haven't
she has
had
not
access to
eaten
vegetables.
one vegetable.
I do love vegetables, though. Okay, how did you go to a conference together, or how did you end up together? Oh,
Yes.
we're here for an art exhibit.
Yes, we're here for an art exhibit, but in reality, how we met was actually the PH Depression page. I'm gonna sound like a super creep. I'm one of the first stories on the PH Depression page, and Susanna posted a story, and I was like, that girl sounds similar, so I'm just going to go and like all of her photos and then message her. So I did that.
Oh. Is that how we met?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. We met on Instagram
Yeah.
through PH Depression.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's how we met. But this is our first time meeting in person,
Yeah.
and it's super exciting.
Yeah.
I hope she likes me after this. But
I don't know how I feel. She doesn't like pizza and doesn't eat vegetables. Like
I eat vegetables. You just haven't seen it, and you can't base your judgment off of like the past 3 days. We'll eat vegetables tonight.
okay.
Okay. All right. Well, it was great talking to you all.
Okay. Bye.
Oh my god, cute. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We will. Collabs are always awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm gonna go force her to eat a vegetable. So
great. Okay. Bye.
bye.